Select Characters, where gaming meets analysis.
Hello and welcome to the 24th episode of the Select Characters podcast. I'm Sam Yates. I will be your host. And if you thought we were casual characters last week, then wait till we see what we've got in store for you today. I'm here. Chris Anderson is here. Enrique and Ryan are out this week. Ryan got married, so congratulations to him. Big public high five for you, buddy. And as for that, it's going to be a little bit of a different episode once again. Me and Chris are just going to kick back. We're going to do some talking. We have to make content. You know, we like it. We like being here, and we want to put something out this week. So it'll be a little different, but bear with us, and we should be back to regular programming sometime soon.
You know, in the spirit of doing this more casual episode, I'm just going to crank open a beer.
Oh, yeah. That's a great idea. Okay.
Let's do this.
Let's make it happen. Let's cruise on through and talk about what we've been playing. Okay, so let's talk about what we've been playing this week. And I guess we'll start with Chris.
The only other person in the room.
Yeah, I wanted to put some drama into it, though.
I'm going to skip over the Destiny discussion because I've been talking about that for the past 3 weeks now, I believe. So I'm not going to subject our listeners to yet another one-sided discussion about Destiny because you don't play Destiny.
Still good, though?
Oh, yeah. My resolve is sort of wavering because it's starting to become more grindy now, but I want to see it through. I really, really do. One other thing that I've been playing a little bit of is the Star Wars Battlefront beta on PS4.
Neat.
And yeah, it's great from a sound design standpoint. I mean, they've been making Star Wars games for about, 20, 25 years now?
I guess.
And this is the first time where I'm fully convinced that I'm actually playing a Star Wars game. The sound is just so lifelike. It's fantastic, especially when you're like me and you play on a 5.1 surround system. It sounds like you're in that war zone, lasers flying everywhere and stuff. And that's pretty great.
You got to nail the pew pew pews and the walls, right?
Yeah, and they actually did that. It's really good. Plus the animations are fantastic. It's hard to describe why they're great, but they just look lifelike. The way that characters sprint, go to a sprint from just normally walking and stuff like that. It just looks lifelike.
So how many people on a server?
40 people. It's 20v20. I thought it was 32 versus 32, but I'm not sure that the consoles are able to handle that. Maybe they will have 32v32 in the release version, but it wasn't in the beta.
Cool. Did you play any of the older titles in that series?
I did. I played one a little bit when it came out, and I played the second one extensively. But that's been quite some time ago. I actually need to start it up again and see how that game compares to the new iteration.
Yeah, I guess that'd be my question. I haven't played any of them at all, but I want people to get what they're excited for with this game, so I hope it comes out and gives everybody like the things they're looking for.
Well, do you like Battlefield?
I haven't played that one either.
Oh.
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't really have a good, strong point of comparison. Unless like Unreal Tournament maybe, but I really doubt that stacks in.
Yeah, it's not balls to the walls crazy like Unreal Tournament is now.
Can you tell me, can you just pick to be a Jedi? I did see one GIF on the internet of like a Jedi guy taking on an AT-ST? And that seemed pretty cool.
1,000 nerds just cried out in anger.
Yeah.
Like, how could you confuse those two?
And we're silenced.
The map is littered with power-ups, basically, that you can pick up. Some give you a new gun, or some gives you access to an X-Wing, or an A-Wing, or a TIE Fighter, depending on which faction you're playing on. And some of them allow you to play as a hero. Now, on the two maps that you can play the multiplayer thing on, one is very objective-based and with smaller teams, and the other one is the huge assault on Hoth with the AT-ATs. Was it AT-STs?
Oh,
I don't know either. But that one is on Hoth, and the two hero characters there are Luke Skywalker and Darth Vader. And let me tell you, when you see one of those coming towards you, you feel one of two things. One is you feel pumped because one of the heroes is there with you, pushing to the front lines with you, or you feel just abject horror because Darth Vader is walking towards you, and that's never good.
Awesome. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
But it's just a power-up? Like, it's just on the ground, you just run over it and pick it up, and then boom, you're now Darth Vader?
I think so.
And
I can't really say for sure because I haven't found that power-up yet.
Gotcha.
But if it works like all the other power-ups in the game, you just walk up to it and you change into the thing. I think. Don't hold me to it. I never did it before.
Cool. I mean, it's probably because somebody's always picking it up. That's probably why it's not there.
Yeah, it does seem like somebody is a hero, like, constantly. I heard some rumors, I don't know if these are true, but I heard some rumors that the best people in the match get preferential treatment when it comes to heroes. But again, I'm not entirely sure.
Cool. Well, I mean, keep us posted. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure it's going to be good, right? I don't think they'd mess something like that up.
I don't know if I will buy it on release, to be honest. I can't really put my finger on it, but there's something about that game that I don't really like. One thing I can put my finger on is that the maps feel really empty, because a map like Hoth, it's enormous. It is absolutely enormous. But there are only 40 people playing on that thing. So it doesn't really feel like a big battle, which is not what you want when you're reenacting one of the biggest battles in the franchise, right?
Yeah. In the old games, they put in little AI characters, right? So there'd be like a ton of ground troops running around to kind of fill that void.
Yeah, you had like neutral factions that would only join in the battle if you attacked them. It's been so long ago since I last played it, so I might be wrong on that as well. Like, I might be spouting just tons of bullshit right now.
No, I remember at least that much. I think that there were computer-controlled dudes just running around like they did in Titanfall.
Yeah, they really should do that with this game as well. Just throw in, I don't know, 50 or 60 NPC characters in there just to make it feel like it's a bigger battle than it actually is. Because it's quite immersion breaking. Because there are just 40 people just running around on a huge map. It's not that much.
But I think overall, man, it's time for another giant 20 or 30 versus 20 or 30 game. I don't think I've seen one of those in a little while.
Well, Battlefield 4 did 64 players, I believe.
So maybe not that long ago. But in the Star Wars universe,
yeah, it's been a long time coming. Yeah,
saved it.
Yeah, I really hope that it's a success. I really hope that the reviews are going to tell me that, are just going to convince me that it's a great game that I need to add to my collection, because I want to love it. I'm ready to fall in love with it. I just have not seen enough of it to make a good decision.
Cool. That sounds good though. Anything else?
No, it's just Destiny and Battlefront. Oh,
it's a good week for shooters.
No, that's not true. I played the beginner's guide, and we want to talk about that game at some point during a game club. So I'm not going to say too much about that here. Or even if I said a bit more about that, it wouldn't really matter, because it's really, really hard to put into words. It's just something that you have to experience to understand or believe. But it's definitely on par with the Stanley Parable, the previous game of the same developer. It's different, but you sort of feel that it's made by the same guy.
Yeah, that was a good game club game. I'm with you, man. I want desperately to talk about that game, and unfortunately we've only got 2, but there's a lot to unpack there.
Yeah,
I think. But that was a phenomenal experience. I mean, that is an easy recommend for like what, $8 and like an hour and a half, so it doesn't wear out its welcome.
Yeah, exactly. It's really short
good.
And sweet, and it gives you enough to sort of contemplate on after the game is finished.
Yeah, that was a good one. That had some big impact.
So what about you?
As for me, I played some Prison Architect.
Oh, right.
Since that came out of early access.
Yeah.
And with their version 1.0, that game's pretty cool. The tutorial missions are all pretty fun. I like the way they set that up as like a story inside a sandbox world. Yeah,
I played maybe 20 minutes of that earlier this week. Played the first tutorial level where you have to build the electric chair thing.
Yeah, that's right. Kind of teaching you how all the systems kind of start to play together. They've really hit on the solution to a lot of problems with games like that. Like, how do you build things in a way that isn't inconvenient? And how do you give people access to all this stuff? Like, user interface wise, I think they made a lot of really smart decisions with that game. It's just too. This is like not even a complaint I can actually make, but it's too realistic.
How so?
Like, I wish it was set somewhere else other than like the real world. I guess. Yeah.
Why?
I guess thematically it just doesn't really jive with me. Like, I'm building a prison. okay, cool, but what if I was building like a castle or a super spaceship or, anything else?
Gamers, ladies and gentlemen, it's never good enough.
Yeah. I think that, thematic concerns, I think that it's okay to have those, but I don't, you know what I mean? I'm not exactly justified. It's very, very much of an opinion, not fact. They made the game they want to make and they did a damn good job at it.
Yeah, exactly. I need to jump back into that in the coming week. There's enough there that piqued my interest. I just haven't really had the time to sit down and actually play it.
Yeah, the whole simulation strategy thing, like, there's a lot of stuff within that. Like, how do we make it complicated but yet easy to access? Like, how do we make building things interesting? And how do we, move these people around in a way that makes sense? And they did a great job with all that stuff, like making patrol routes, just building buildings, all that kind of stuff just makes sense in a really good way. The only thing that I wish they would have done, there's a clone tool where you can grab like a section of prison and copy it somewhere else. But the square that you can make with it is not big enough to really sort of be as big as you want it. Like, I would love to just grab a whole cell block and then paste it somewhere else. But what you can actually grab is maybe a quarter of that. But, whatever. Tiny, tiny complaints, right? Overall, that game's amazing.
I heard something about a game mode where you actually play as an inmate and you have to escape from the prison, but the prison you have to escape from is made by another player.
Yep. I tried that, and they said, what prison do you want to escape from? And I said, grab one from the Steam Workshop. And it starts out, you can set the number of stars. I don't know what that is. I assume it's like other people rating the prisons.
Yeah.
So I picked 5 stars. I was like, well, I want to have a nicely constructed prison to break out from. And that place was a fortress. It was like all hard right angles, and it was called like the Dome or something. And it was a terrifying place to be. And the first thing I did was trying to get the hang of the controls. I punched my bed, and then the guards just ran in and tased me, and then I was locked in the cell for 2 hours. It was like, man, prison sucks.
Feels like social commentary.
Yeah, no doubt. I think they definitely get into the social commentary thing without being heavy-handed about it.
Yeah, at one point during the tutorial, they when you have to build the electric chair, the warden tells you that it's not our job to decide whether he's guilty or not. The justice system has done that. We are just here to pass the sentence, which I thought was pretty strong.
As you get more into the tutorial, there's sort of the reformation versus punishment kind of argument back and forth between two different characters in that story.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it all plays out pretty nicely without being preachy or weird about it.
It's good.
So that's a good line to walk, I think.
Yeah, it's one of early access's success stories.
I would definitely call it an early access darling.
There you go.
But it's good. They made a damn good game. Throw some orcs in there, and maybe we might really be talking.
It would have gotten the Samuel Yates stamp of approval were it not for the fact that it doesn't have orcs.
Yeah, it needs more orcs. What am I going to say? Let me pitch you this. You're running a prison, right? And it's in a fantasy land, and you have to imprison wizards and orcs. And oh no, they might break out with magic. Just saying. Just throwing that out there. That would probably be a worse game, actually.
Yeah, I don't see how that would work. Hey, there's something I want to talk to you about, because you mentioned that before we started the episode, and I've been wanting to talk to one of the guys in Select Characters about this for ages, and you've been playing more Life is Strange, haven't you?
Yeah, I have. I finished all the episodes that are out right now.
Okay, so is my enthusiasm from your point of view in any way justified?
I think so. I mean, you can be as excited about something as you want to be, right?
Yeah,
it's not on me to tell you not to be excited. That'd be a huge bummer. I think overall what I can tell you is that I will gladly cross through like the desert of fine, and I will sort of walk through the country of good, and I will place my camp right on the border of good and great, but I don't know if I can follow you to the terrific mountains. Okay,
I can live with that. So give us your thoughts.
It's good/great. I mean, it's right on the border of good and great. It's a really well-crafted story game. It's hard to pass judgment on it without playing the last episode, I think.
Yeah, I'm waiting for that one. The 20th of October, we'll see the release of the 5th and final episode of this season.
There's no reason to expect that they won't nail it. I mean, they've done a really good job so far.
Yeah. The episodes got progressively better as the series went on, which I found very surprising, because in terms of tone, the first episode is like 180 degrees in the opposite direction from the tone in the fourth episode, which I thought was really well done.
Yeah. 1 was good. I think there was a lull, like 2, and then like the first 80% of 3 were a little bit of a lull, and then like the end of 3 and then all of 4 kind of rocketed it back up again, which I mean is what you want. You don't want to come hard and fast all the time.
Yeah, exactly. And that game is really good about just, giving you a breather and just making you enjoy some of the more quiet contemplative moments, which is great.
Every episode has like a chair somewhere.
Yeah, where you can just sit and listen to Max think about something that's happening and listen to some great music. Yeah, that's another point. The soundtrack is, in my opinion, incredible. It's so well crafted.
It's pretty good. I liked it. There's not too much else to say for me about that, but I think that, in that world, those acoustic guitar songs are exactly what you want to put in there.
Yeah.
And I think it makes a lot of sense.
I like the overall balance between very droney ambient music and sort of very roadsy, sort of anthemic acoustic music that sounds sort of solemn and sad, but also quite mysterious. I like that. Every time I heard the main theme, which is the song that you hear playing when you start the game, it always make me feel comfortable.
Yeah, it's very relaxing.
Yeah,
definitely.
I actually listen to the soundtrack all the time. I got the soundtrack from the actual game files, and I listen to it all the time. It's fantastic. Yeah, I'm glad you've jumped on the Life is Strange train.
I think they sold me with the thing where you're always telling Alyssa to get out of the way.
Yes.
So I did it in episode 1, and then it happened again in episode 2, and I was like, please let this be a thing. All I want you to do is let that be a thing, and then it was.
Yeah. And it keeps on happening. That's not a major spoiler, by the way. Anybody who's listening and who hasn't played it yet, shame on you, by the way. Go play it. And that wasn't really a big spoiler, because the thing that happens to that girl is not really consequent. It's of no consequence to anything in that game.
Well, we don't know that yet.
Maybe that'll come and bite us in the ass come episode 5. Yeah.
But overall, man, it's good. I like it. I think it's all right. I wish that the creepy janitor wasn't named Samuel. I think that's not the greatest creative decision anybody's ever made.
He's not creepy. He's weird, yes, but he's not creepy.
And I like just the character acting is really good too.
Yeah, it really is. And they chose the right voice actors for the characters as well, I think.
And what was it, episode 4? It felt like they figured out how to make like a rolling numerical lock on something, and then they just went crazy with it.
Yeah.
Somebody on the development team, or something, figured out how to make a number lock, and then they just put it in there like 8 times.
Yeah, one of the puzzles in the fourth one, one of the locks, I just couldn't figure it out, and I actually had to go to the internet, and then I checked the stats at the end of the episode, and pretty much nobody got it. So I'm resting comfortable in knowing that everyone took to the internet to figure that one out.
Yeah, I think the one you're talking about, when I played it was still like 17%.
Oh.
And I only pushed through because I remembered you saying that like a few episodes ago.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, this is going to be difficult. I'm ready for this to be difficult. Let's try and figure it out. I think that one I came at sideways though. Like there were 2 ways to do that, right?
Mm.
Yeah, I think I did it the majority way, because that was why there are like multiple percents in both directions.
It's so hard to not talk about it openly. We have to talk about something else before all hell breaks loose.
Okay, vague secrecy and play Life is Strange. Chris is right.
Yes.
Chris is justified. Chris is right. The game's pretty dang all right.
It's
actually pretty great. Yeah, I forgot I was going to go all the way to good/great. The game's pretty great.
You are forgiven.
All right. I guess let's move on.
Cool.
Talk about some other stuff. So I know that I had my perhaps unjustified opinion about Prison Architect, about how it sort of thematically didn't appeal to me. And I mean, is that Do you think that's a legitimate complaint? Do you think that some games would be better if they were just themed differently or perhaps took place in a different universe? How much of an impact do you think that has on the overall experience? Has that ever turned you off of anything?
Well, it's undoubtedly something like if you like a game, but it could be better when it's placed in a different world or something. That's undoubtedly a thing, but I think that is all personal preference and it doesn't really say all that much about the game unless the mechanics actually don't gel well with the theme or the subject matter. But mostly it's just personal preference. Like you said, you'd like it better if it was in a fantasy world because you probably like fantasy better than the real world, which is totally logical because you inhabit that real world. But still.
Yeah, I live here every day. It's true. It seems like, at least, because I also play a lot of tabletop games, and in that space, like every time you see somebody talking about a game, they always talk about the mechanics and then they talk about the theme. Like, theme is always one of the bullet points when you're approaching a game and trying to sort of quantify it.
Yeah.
In a way that's, like, way more important than the video game world. But it just seemed like with this one, I was like, man, the theme doesn't really appeal to me. And you're right, man. It's something about, like, the mechanics need to line up with it. And, I mean, in this case, yes, they absolutely do line up. It just happens that I don't care for the theme as much. But I think that I don't really like the real-world theme in general. I mean, I guess like you were saying, I don't, like historical stuff, you got to go pretty far back before I'm interested.
How far back is pretty far back?
I don't know, maybe Roman stuff. It's pretty cool.
Jesus, that is really, really far back.
Yeah, medieval stuff. Go like before the turn of the 20th century. I'm probably on board. It's not to say that stuff's not interesting. Like it can be really mechanically interesting. It's just not thematically compelling for me.
I wonder why. Because even if a game is set in recent times or in contemporary times, it's still not a life that you're living with characters that you are not familiar with in situations you will never get into. So it might be derived from the world that you're living in right now, but it's still far from the same thing.
Yeah. No, I mean, if you were trying to like put a bar about distance from me like to the experience, it would be just as far with those as it would be with any kind of sci-fi, kind of crap. But it's just, I guess, a lot of games kind of boil down that way. Like you have the mechanics, but they could almost take place anywhere. I think you see that with a lot of turn-based kind of strategy stuff because you're basically moving units on a hex. Like you could take Civ and just change the characters and resources and put it somewhere else if you wanted to.
Yeah, they did that with like the sci-fi game. Jesus, what's it called? So, Beyond Earth, I think. They basically did that. That's Civ 5 in space.
But it's at least in video games, it's just like something where you just accept the theme as part of the package, and nobody really thinks about moving those mechanics somewhere else. But a lot of times the mechanics are kind of generic that you could move them basically wherever you wanted to. I guess a good example is like Frozen Synapse. That game sort of takes place in like a hologram sort of style universe. Mm-hmm. And it's just move your guys, start time, watch how they move, try to kill the other guys, that kind of stuff. And it's good, but it could also take place not in a super far-flung futuristic universe. Like they could have brought that to modern day, and you could be playing it modern day, and I might not like it as much. But at least with video games, like I said, there's just take the themes at face value, which is interesting. But I don't know exactly why. I guess it's a lot of that. It's a lot of that very mechanic heavy stuff, and they just got to paste something on top of it so that you're doing it somewhere.
Yeah. Did I understand that correctly? You're not really all that much into sci-fi either, like sci-fi worlds and stuff?
Oh, I like sci-fi a whole heap.
Oh, okay. I just misunderstood that.
Yeah, I like that too. It's just the grounded in the real world stuff. I didn't have as much of a problem with Life is Strange though, but I think that's got more to do because that's not a mechanical game. So it doesn't really feel like they could possibly change the theme. Like that has to take place where it is.
Yeah, it's very atmospheric, basically. I don't know, man. It's usually the theme is what draws me into a game, or what helps me decide to buy a certain game, because the theme is usually very visual, and that's the first thing you see.
Yeah, like this is the world I want to check out. I want to see what's going on around here.
Yeah, exactly. That's what piqued my interest in Destiny, to be honest, because I really, really like the art style and stuff, and it looks sort of mysterious and all that, and that drew me in. The mechanics came second, but that's where you and I differ slightly. Well, not slightly, we differ a whole lot. because I don't really care all that much about mechanics. As long as the mechanics are good enough for me to play the game, then I'm fine. For me, the story and the atmosphere and the music is the most important thing. And for you, it's the other way around.
That's true. Yeah. Different strokes for different folks, man. And maybe that sort of viewpoint is what makes me feel like you could just grab these mechanics and transplant them somewhere more interesting to me personally.
Which is a sterile environment.
Yeah, I think that might not be the most fair request, but I guess it also harkens to the types of games I play. It's mostly turn-based, it's mostly mechanics heavy, and you could slap whatever coat of paint you want to on top of that, I think, generally speaking. But also in video games, a lot of people choose to not do that. Like almost all the video games take place in, fantastic environments and these different worlds and things like that. It's not a very grounded medium, I think, in general.
No, it's all escapism and power fantasies. And what better way to give people a power fantasy than to set it in a world that is very unlike our own?
Yeah. So obviously there's exceptions to that rule, but then you come across something that is very grounded, like Prison Architect, and it's kind of a jarring experience.
I wouldn't really call it realistic. You're dealing with realistic themes, you're dealing mostly with the American penal system there. And that is very grounded in reality, but it doesn't look realistic. It's very cartoony.
Yeah, that's a good point. The art style definitely breaks. The art style doesn't have as much to do with what you're doing, the themes as much as something else. That's true.
Yeah, it doesn't feel realistic, even though it's dealing with realistic themes.
I don't know. I don't really go for much for the shooters, like the modern day shooters either, although I love first-person shooter games.
So here's a question for you. What is a theme that you just always like?
Well, high fantasy stuff is normally a win for me.
Yeah, that's pretty great.
And I also like just unique themes, stuff that takes place in weird places that almost don't link up with anything that you would expect.
Example?
Like Shadowrun.
Yeah.
Like a melding of that sort of dystopian future with all the magic stuff. It comes together pretty cool.
Cyberpunk as a theme. Just a sort of branch off of Shadowrun there. And cyberpunk as a theme is very interesting to me.
So it's like a melding and sort of like a movement away from what you would typically expect for a dystopian future. It's cool.
But I don't know. I think cyberpunk is very grounded in reality for the most part, because usually cyberpunk shows how our society could be worse if we continue to develop the technology that we have today. It seems like a sort of logical conclusion to our technological progression. So in a sense, cyberpunk is pretty realistic.
That's true. It's like the hard science fiction, right? I think that's what they call it.
Yeah, I think so.
And just take what we have today and extrapolate it out, and then you normally put a detective in there somewhere to be solving a case.
Yeah, it's pretty... Mirror's Edge is really good about that. Mirror's Edge is interesting because that one is post-cyberpunk, which is basically the reverse of cyberpunk, where it shows how our society could turn into how society could turn in a utopia if we keep developing the technology that we have today. And Mirror's Edge is very interesting because it juxtaposes that with what is basically a film noir story where you get framed for the murder of somebody else and you go out to find the real killer to clear your name. I find that very interesting because of the juxtaposition, because they seem to be two elements that don't seem to go together, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. Well, Assassin's Creed's a great example of that, because you think that you're in like this Renaissance type of world, but then there's also that modern day layer put on top of it where you're basically in a giant simulation. That's pretty cool as far as the theme goes. I have no qualms with the Assassin's Creed theme.
Yeah, and a lot of people seem to take issue with how it's implemented. I'm not among those people. I actually like the modern day stuff, but I can understand why people are against it, because it's less time spent in the past, basically, and the major draw to that series is the past. One thing that Ubisoft is very good at when it comes to Assassin's Creed is sending you to time periods that not a lot of other games go to.
Yeah, that's a fact.
I mean, I never really played a game like Assassin's Creed Unity where you're actually there during the French Revolution. That's pretty great, especially because they rebuilt Paris basically on a 1-by-1 scale.
Yeah, I mean, implementation is a whole issue, I guess, with that series, but I think on paper, what they've done with the past world and also, the modern day world melded together in that way is a really cool idea.
I think I know what the problem with that game is it feels like after 2, the story was supposed to be finished, But the game was such a huge success that they just kept on making it. And now the game, like the franchise as a whole, feels sort of lost at sea.
Yeah, was 2 the one where, like, they're talking to the character or talking to you in the chair behind the character at the end? Like, they actually reference you playing the game? There's, like, a weird alien lady that's talking to you?
Yeah, the first Civilization thing,
2?
she actually talks to Desmond, the player character that you play. Yeah, I think that's in 2, or Brotherhood, one of the 2. I'm not entirely sure.
But I get why taking it from that point would be kind of a challenge.
Yes.
Like, you kind of locked yourself up right there. Like, where do you take it from that point forward?
Yeah, it feels like they're winging it. To go back to the theming stuff, I don't usually have a preference when it comes to theming, as long as it feels interesting to me. It can be high fantasy, can be low fantasy, can be cyberpunk, can be post-cyberpunk, can be anything, as long as it sparks my interest. And yeah, I'm just one of those people for whom mechanics come secondary.
Have you ever played a game and thought that it'd be cooler if it took place somewhere else? Because I wonder if that's even like a concern that people have even thought about in the video game sphere.
I don't think so, because if you buy into a game, one could assume that you bought the game because the aesthetic and the story drew you into buying it.
Yeah, and
so
it's
I
all
don't really
one
think
big
that that's a
package.
concern once you've bought the game.
Yeah, it's interesting. That's the first time I've ever felt it with a video game. Like, I wish that this took place somewhere else. This is the first time I've ever felt it with a video game. I've played some board games that were like really dry merchant simulations, and I was like, this would be cooler if you gave it a little bit of like pop or flash, you know? But that's the first time it's ever happened to me with a video game, so it's kind of been on my mind. Like, what else would I change if I had, you know, like if I had my own way and I could take this game and move it to another universe? And there's not a lot of it. And I'm not sure if it's because they, like I said, like, you know, they're all basically take place in these exaggerated environments, or if it's that, I don't know, like I just take the whole thing as a package and say, okay, cool, this is what you made, you know, this is where we are. Let's see what's going on.
Yeah, people usually buy the package. Yeah, this is something I've never thought about, because I never really, you know, like you, I never really had this problem, or you have had it now. But
yeah, it's never happened to me here. You know, that's what's weird about it. Like, what if Counter-Strike took place 2,000 years in the future? Or, you know, like, it was basically the same game. It just, you changed all the skins and stuff. Maybe some mods and stuff sort of go into that territory because you're playing the same game, but with a different skin.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, you could say that the whole mod scene basically operates on that stuff, especially the people that make total conversions.
Yeah, I think that Mount & Blade is a good, like, example of that kind of stuff. Because they take that basic framework and then move it, but they just kind of move it into different eras and things, or, you know, make it fantasy, whereas it was realistic before. There's, I think a lot of the general idea of the mods for Mount & Blade are re-themes, but I can't think of a lot of examples, so it's interesting.
We always seem to come up with questions that don't really have an answer, do we?
Well, those are the best kind of questions, I think. And I mean, it's something you have to think about, or at least I would. Like, if I was making a game and I was like, okay, cool, I want you to be able to do this, 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 and this. I want to have these, you know, sort of pieces and gears playing with each other. Okay, where do I want this to take place?
Yeah.
Like, that would be my process. Like, now, where are we? Like, what's going on? And I feel like if I was picking it, it would always be somewhere, quotes, like, can I do air quotes on a podcast? Interesting.
I don't have the answers for you, man, I'm afraid.
Art style, like, very common to think about in terms of video games, but thematic, much less of a, like, looked at sort of facet of a game, right?
At least not actively for most people. Because a game just strikes you as interesting or not interesting based off, I don't know, a couple of screenshots or maybe a trailer. And that usually deals with the theme. So if you like it, you buy it. If you don't like it, you don't buy it. I want to talk about that moment that we've all had before, where you just burnt out on a game and you just have to step away from it. And we can even just pull out a bit further, and a macro view, I think it's called.
Yep.
Why we sometimes just get fed up with games, but we always come back. And I want to talk about that. What makes us just go away and what makes us come back?
Dude, you know what I hate is that trough or that valley in between games where you just got...
How do you mean?
Like, you just got done with a game and you're sort of going, okay, what do I play next? that downtime in between, I hate it so much.
I think that's why a New Game Plus was invented.
Yeah, I mean, I normally find something, but maybe I'm just scared of the time where I don't. Like, there's nothing else I want to play. Obviously, that'll never happen, but that's what it feels like. Yeah, you finish something, and then you're scrolling through your Steam library like, man, I hope there's something here I want to play.
Really?
Please, please, please. Oh, thank goodness. Oh, thank goodness. There's still something here I want to play.
Probably some roguelike that you can play ad infinitum and ad nauseum.
Yeah, but, I mean, that won't work for me, I don't think. I can't play the same game infinitely unless it was, amazing. And I don't know what that game is yet, but that's my main source of frustration as far as putting games down and picking them back up again, is that lull in between different titles.
A genre that seems to have this state of mind associated with it quite often is the MMO.
Oh god, yeah.
Yeah, except for like WoW. You probably heard somebody say this before, but you don't quit WoW, you just go at AFK for very long periods of time.
I heard Enrique say that.
You will always come back. Yeah, Enrique said that. And it's like a standard thing that they say on the forums as well. And it's true for me. I mean, I quit WoW about once a year. Then I come back when there's a new expansion pack. And I don't really know why. Maybe because I'm invested in it, because I've got a playtime of, 29 days. But I'm not sure that is enough to keep me coming back and pay money for the service.
Yeah. MMOs are their whole different world. Like, they're a whole other beast, man. And you get frustrated with MMOs. I think it's because what's keeping you there maybe is a kind of motivation that, when you stop, doesn't feel as good looking back on it. Like, realizing what was tying you to that experience kind of feels dirty or nasty in a way, because the motivation to stay there isn't as much about the joy of having fun and playing the game as it is, one of those myriad of factors like peer pressure or, addiction to the loot cycle, or it always seems to be something negative in my experience.
Yeah. After a while, you sort of start to figure out that what you're playing is essentially a Skinner box. And every little bit of progression that you make up that ladder is basically not ending in anything worthwhile.
Yeah.
I mean, at least that is what always stops me playing. That's what made me stop playing Destiny in the first place, actually. It's just, yes, I've got a very high light level now. I'm ready for raids, and I've got the best guns in the game, but does it matter?
That's a very unique MMO thing. Like, you peek behind the curtain and there's just nothing there, just like a tumbleweed slowly rolling by, and you're just what? Why did I do this? Why? But then you find yourself doing it again. It's strange. The very beginning of that, the initial rush of that MMO loop, is incredibly powerful.
And I think the major draw, and also its major flaw, is that the content is endless. It's great if you just discovered a game and you're playing it, because there is no end in sight. You can just keep on going, and the numbers will keep going up. You will keep getting better gear. But on the other hand, there is no end in sight.
And right, because they're going to keep releasing expansions. Even when you do get to the end of this one, they're just going to move the finish line back 100 yards.
Yeah, exactly. And even if you play the entire game, if you finish a story, you got the best gear, you've got all the achievements on the raids, there's always something else you want or you could do. It's never ending.
Right. That's true. Even the main content and getting geared out, even WoW has those weird little achievements. It's all just to keep you playing forever. I wonder if it's not possible to get them all, right? Because some of them are tied to different expansions or time periods, and those might not be
or events.
Those might not be gettable now. But I wonder what the time investment would be to do everything in World of Warcraft.
Oh god.
I mean, it's probably insane. You have to wonder if it's even possible. You need them to stop making expansions, and maybe for the game to die for you to even start to have the time to start catching up. I don't know. But that's in their best interest, in the game where your success is equated with how much time you spend playing the game. They're sort of motivated to make the goals and objective be things that take a lot of time. And I would guess that it maybe when you can see the end of that loop, that's when the new expansion comes out.
Yeah, and the whole cycle starts all over again.
Breaking off of the MMO cycle is something that I'm glad that I'm not a part of anymore.
I do log on every now and then. I will play WoW when there's a new expansion, but I'm not as into it as I once was. And it's not like I don't have the time to commit to it. I do, but it's lost its hold on me, I guess. After 10 years, most things get stale.
Oh, yeah.
And I think that WoW is among those things now.
It worked for me because I stopped for the right amount of time. That when I went back into it, it was way too much. So if I would have like stopped for just a shorter period of time, I would still know everything that was going on. But I came in like right when everything was like way more complicated and way too much stuff going on than it was when I left, and I was like, nah, I'm good. I don't want to figure all that out. So thank goodness that I put it down for just long enough.
I can just play it casually now and be totally fine with that. Some other games though. Ugh. But yeah, different question. Has there ever been any point in your life where you were just sick of games in general and just stopped playing?
I don't think so. I think that games fill a void or a need for me. I think that they like provide a service that my brain requires. So I mean, although I've had times where like I've had to be away from them, you know, due to time constraints or stuff going on in my life, it's always been something that I want to do. So I've never really said, all right, I'm done with video games, you know, never again. I don't want to play anymore. I've never actually felt that. It's just like I've been forced not to by just, you know, just stuff.
What is that void? What is that need that video games fill?
Oh, it's that problem solving thing. Like, you gotta keep the wheels in my brain spinning, and it just happens that video games are a fast feedback loop for that. So, like, you jump in, you figure something out, you get, you know, success. Okay, cool, I figured that out, that's great. And it's just a world where there's always something to figure out, and it's easy to figure most of it out, so it's not like a like a larger goal, like learning to woodwork or something like that. Like, that is a whole bunch of smaller problems, but that take a lot of time, investment, and mastery. Video games just give it to you compressed and faster. And so, like, if I need to be thinking about something, video games do that pretty well. They let me feel productive without actually fucking doing anything.
That's the danger, isn't it?
That is absolutely the danger, yeah. But it's like an aside to like the main goals and the main achievements of my life. Like, it's like a smaller, like, recreational achievement, I guess, maybe would be a weird term for it, but I think would apply. And so there's not much out there that sort of meets those needs the same way that video games do. And so they've always been a part of my life, and they probably always will be, because they are uniquely suited to exactly that. And who knows, like, if maybe when I was little, if somebody would have gotten me like a model car or something or anything, you know, it just happened to be video games. So that's what I do. I don't know.
Oh, fair enough.
What about you?
Fair enough.
What keeps you playing video games? Have you ever decided not to? Have you ever not wanted to?
Earlier today, yes. That's because, you know, I've been writing quite a few articles on games over the past couple of days, and basically I've been dealing so much with games on a professional level. Yeah. I just didn't really feel like using my downtime to play extra games.
It's that time when work creeps in on the recreational, for sure.
Yeah. They always say that you should not turn your hobby into a job, and I always fucking do that. I always did. I did it with music, did it with radio, because I did radio for a year.
I heard it the other way around. I heard that if you can turn your hobby into a job, that's what you should do.
Maybe I should start believing in that one.
Yeah, that's the way I've always heard it. Like, if you love what you do, you'll never work a day in your life.
So maybe it's just that Dutch people are very pessimistic when it comes to stuff like this, and the Americans are more upbeat. Like, yes, turn what you love into your job. Just do it. And over here it's no, don't do that.
Don't do anything else but that. Well, I think at least it's like with creative mediums, it's a different story. I don't believe that anybody actually loves what they do for work. I think that's a huge lie. That's a story for another day. I mean, the point is that the moral of the story is what people tell you is do what you love, and if you can get paid for it, then extra rock and roll, I guess.
I guess we'll see. I mean, I'm pretty new to this whole paid journalism thing, so maybe in a couple of months we'll have this discussion again, and I'll tell you if your hypothesis is right.
Yeah.
Who knows? But stepping away from games for extended periods of time, I never really did unless I couldn't play games. There was a time where I did not have internet, and I did not really have a computer that was capable of playing games, so I couldn't play games. But any opportunity I had to play games at a friend's house or something like that, I would do it, because I love playing video games.
I love playing games in general. I mean, like, if you put me in a room with a tennis ball, like, I'd find a way to, like, calculate bouncing it off the walls and, like, adding up a score or something like that. Like, I like the way that games engage me mentally, period. Video games, tabletop games, whatever. Like, that's where I'm at.
I think what keeps me coming back to video games is there's always a world that I have not explored. There's always a competitive mode I have not yet played. There are always characters that I've yet to meet and that I can interact with. That's why video games are so unique. You can actually interact with personalities in video games. Even if the interaction is very limited, because the interaction goes as far as the writer wrote the character, right? Mm-hmm. But it's still a possibility. Even in that limited space, you can still form, admittedly, one-sided relationships with these characters. And I find that very interesting. I mean, you could say the same with characters in films. Like, how often do people say that they love a certain character in a certain film?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
It happens all the time. In games, you get to talk to these people, which I find amazing. Plus, you can walk around in these interesting worlds. You can experience these interesting stories firsthand. You are the person that pushes the story forward. And that's what keeps me coming back. Plus, I'm susceptible to skitter boxes as well. So that's why I like MMOs. It's just a constant reward thing.
It's so hard not to be. Even knowing, even going in with the knowledge, like, okay, I know exactly what you're doing, but it still works.
Yeah, it's still fun to do.
Like, it's just like the span of time is shorter, like that might catch somebody else for a long time, but it only catches you for like a little bit. Because you go, oh, I see, I got it, I see what you got, I'm out, I'll see you later, But even then, for that first little bit, you're just right on board. Like idle games and like the clickers and all that stuff, like just give me the numbers, let's watch it happen. It's strange.
Go up.
Yeah. It's strange to still be drawn in by that kind of thing. But putting games down in general, I don't know if it's something I could ever do if I had a choice. I just like them too much, I guess.
Yeah, and see, this ties into something that we talked about, I think a couple of months back. I think what you said was, at the end of the day, they are just video games. And I disagreed then, and I still do, but I thought about this a little bit more. Games obviously mean more to us than just something that we do when we're bored, or, to stave off boredom, basically.
Like, we seek them out instead of, they don't just come to us, yeah.
Yeah, we actively seek them out. We actively look forward to games that are not yet out, and we go out and we pay an exorbitant amount of money to play the game that has become the object of our desire. So I think calling games just games, even though they essentially are, if you look at it from a very cold perspective, they're just pieces of media that you play to make the time pass. But for most of us, and I'm willing to bet that most people who are listening to the podcast feel the same way, games are a very big cornerstone in my life, and I'm willing to bet that it's a big cornerstone in your life, in Enrique's life, and in Ryan's life.
What you'd be trying to do by calling them anything else or saying there were anything else would be bundling the impact, emotionally and mentally together and like tacking it on to the end of video games. And that's kind of a difficult thing. There's a lot of like non-quantifiable data going on. Like, it's all very qualitative. Like, this is how this made me feel. This is why I enjoyed this. This is why I didn't. It's an extremely complicated thing. And when I say that they're just video games, I mean, they are just video games. But that doesn't mean, that they can't have like impact and do all these different things. Like, an axe is just an axe. But, if you chop wood with it or if you kill somebody with it, it's very different from the object itself.
Yeah, that's true.
So I don't mean to say that in like a dismissive way when I say that video games are just video games, because obviously they have a huge impact on my life. And I mean, I like them, I don't know who I would be without playing video games,
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's tricky to bring all that stuff down and then, pack it in and say, this is what games mean to me, because it's such a vastly different thing for everybody.
Yeah.
Even for just, the 4 people we put together to play this podcast, it's all different.
Yeah, and we wouldn't be doing this if games weren't important to us. And it's the word "just" in "just games" that sort of feels like it's downplaying the significance it has on a lot of people's lives, because it's just something.
Right? Yeah, it's that little bit at the front kind of throws the car off course.
Yeah, that's why I'm that pretentious dickhead that always talks about interactive art. I'm one of those people because for
immersive experience.
Yeah, exactly. Because in my mind, that sort of that covers it better than just games. But maybe I'm just too hung up on the semantics, on the specific. Maybe I'm just a bit nitpicky when it comes to that.
Well, you could even push that down to the fact that games fulfill a different need for you than they do for me. So, like, where your vision is and what you're focused on is different. Like, if we both approach the same game, we'd have something totally different to say about it. And it's got nothing to do with, the object. It's got to do with the interpretation.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool. I mean, like, that's pretty neat as far as, because that happens with every other medium out there on the planet.
Yeah, art means different things to different people.
So I think that's cool because it is all the stuff that is, but it's also highly interactive.
Yeah.
It's a great time to play video games. All the time.
It is. I've said it before and I'll say it again. Now is the best time to be a fan of video games. Ever.
I wonder if Enrique or Ryan ever felt like they were done with video games for a while. I'd like to hear from somebody who did, and I wonder what their reasons were. I imagine it would have to have something to do with like it created a negative force in your life in some way, right?
A friend of mine, he used to be really, really into games, and now he hardly ever plays them. And he says that he just got tired of it. It was no longer fun to play.
Just got bored.
Yeah, just got fed up with the medium itself.
I can't imagine it. No, I just can't. I can't imagine it. It's such a vast and diverse medium. Like, if you were bored with one thing, there's like 100 different genres. I don't know. I mean, I believe him, obviously. I can't see it happening to me personally.
Yeah, me neither. Games have taken up such a significant portion of my daily life now that I write about them, and obviously, with the podcast, it's become an even bigger part of my life. And I don't think that at this point, I can walk away from it and not miss it.
Yeah, that's true. That's true, man. You know what? Video games are great.
They really are.
Yeah. To take a step back and look at, sort of how they slot into your life and your personality. It's more than I guess it looks like at a first glance. And that will bring us to the end of episode 24 of the Select Characters podcast. Wow. We got deep.
Yeah.
It got pretty heavy there.
Some nice character development there.
Yeah, that's right. We're gonna build our plot line slowly. Now there's a little more to us than you thought there was at first, and then wait for the twist.
So this is not a regular thing. I think next week everybody will be back. I think Ryan is back from his honeymoon next week, so we'll be 4 people again, and we'll resume regular scheduling.
Yeah, thank you for bearing with us. I hope that we like talking to each other, and we were going to do it anyway, so we figured why not put the microphones on.
Exactly.
And so normal programming next week. We got some game clubs in the queue that we're sort of trying to spin out. There's some scheduling stuff going on, but we'll get those out to you, so keep an eye on the YouTube channel for those. And because we do really want to talk about the beginner's guide. Man.
Yeah.
Good grief.
And Escape from Monkey Island as well. But, scheduling conflicts, not everybody can be here. And we'd rather do the game club with all 4 of us here.
Yeah, I think it's good. You got to get those viewpoints in. For anything else, you can check out the subreddit /r/selectcharacters, Twitter, Facebook, all that good stuff. We're around. You could send us an email to selectcharacters@gmail.com. And if you had a thought about Monkey Island or the Beginner's Guide and you thought, oh, darn, I missed my chance, you didn't miss your chance. We haven't recorded those yet. So send us an email with what you thought about either of those games, and we'll bring it to part of the discussion on the Game Club. And other than that, thank you for listening, and we will see you next week.
Thank you. Goodbye.